Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Welcome back to another episode of the Soul Tribe Podcast. Today, we're interviewing Courtney Starkey. Because once I pronounced it a little weird. Yeah, so this time I said it right. Yeah. I would, if I had to label you, I'd say hypnotic genius.
I love that.
I love it too.
Hypnotizer genius. And you also you're an author as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Do you have your book in in PDF form?
Yeah. So whenever somebody goes to my website for the book, which is cornflowerbook.com, what they end up getting is a copy of the hard copy signed, mailed to them, but they also get the ebook and they also get the audio book and then a couple of guided hypnosis recordings. So one purchase and then get the whole package. Because every now and then people are like, why don't you sell your book on Amazon? And I'm like, well, there are a couple of reasons. The first is that they get this whole package, right? Rather than just saying like, oh no, it's just, you get the book. But then also, is it okay if I make a crass joke?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not interested in funding penis-shaped rockets going into space. Bezos. So if I partner with Amazon, I'm like, no, I'd rather actually the funds from the book sales to go to good things. So yeah. So I intentionally don't partner with Amazon.
I've actually been meaning to ask you because I bought like a e-reader now. And I've been meaning to contact you and ask you if you have the PDF version, but I was afraid that you were going to say, yeah, it's on Amazon. Seriously, because every good book, spiritual book that I want in a PDF form or e-reader or whatever, it's on Amazon. So I refuse. I don't buy anything on Amazon. I refuse it.
Yeah. You have no worries with Cornflower. It is Amazon free.
And
you're getting all of the versions. Mm-hmm.
You did the book, you wrote it independently. Did you publish it independently too? So it's great that you're selling it independently. I think that's perfect, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I have found that throughout the years that who I like to partner with are my friends in the spirit realm. And I don't partner with beings on the earth plane that well. So yeah. So I worked on all of it independently. And so now it's out in the world the way that I want it to be out in the world and being sold the way I want it to be sold. And it's really nice. It has a good energy.
It's a huge accomplishment.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely I'm going to go to the website and purchase one and read it.
Thank you. I ship internationally, so I'm pretty cool.
How doesn't it cost a lot of money to ship it to a total different continent?
It does to a degree. And then also I think in Europe, you guys have some additional tax that you have to pay.
Duty, right?
Yeah, something like that. So, but again, it's a big package. And then it's a good book. So it's worth it. I do say so myself.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure we're both going to have to read it.
Yeah.
I just got one of the best compliments for it too. One of my one-on-one clients, she read it shortly before having her one-on-one session. And she told me, she was like, I started reading the book in the morning and then she had to call in to not go into work that day. She was like, I had to finish it. I was like, this is definitely the best compliment of all the compliments. That she had to call into work and be like, I can't come in. I have to finish this
You're
book.
making irresponsible employees, Courtney. What do you think about yourself?
What are you doing, Courtney?
I feel very proud of myself. So yeah, I'm like, this one is definitely the top review of all of the reviews.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So hypnotic genius, hypnotherapist genius, author. Is there anything else I should add to that?
Here's why I like the hypnotic genius joke. I mean, I know you're joking, but because
only a little bit.
That's very sweet. That's very sweet. do you remember what genius actually means? Like genius, like the way that we think of it now is that we think that the person, their brain is the genius. Like we give this individualized, like you are so special, you're a genius. But the original version of genius, the real meaning of genius is that the person was open to, I'm getting goosebumps, was open to wisdom outside of themselves.
Yes.
So the genius was actually
I didn't know that.
Yes, that's why. So when you use the word genius, I was like, I'll take it.
I channeled it. I obviously channeled it.
Yeah. So like it's a good characterization of what is happening, where it's like I'm just the one that stays open and receives all of this good stuff, and the genius is actually very much outside of me, and I just connect with it, and then it flows through my vessel. So like it could look like I should deserve some credit for all of this. And I'm like, I really only deserve credit for letting it flow through me. Like that's the actual credit that I deserve.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like the word witch, which is like wise woman.
Mm-hmm. Right? Is that like the original meaning?
Yeah, which means wise woman. So yeah.
Another label that we all deserve.
Call me witch all day long.
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane how like there's certain words that just we get used to using it and we actually don't look back at what they really like mean. I watched this whole episode with Billy Carson. I think it was Billy Carson. We talks about like words and how they're spells, like just what you're saying and how you say it, they're spells.
Yeah. And
I never paid attention to that. And I think it was Billy Carson. I have to remember. It was on Gaia. And they gave a few examples on that episode in the interview. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
It's true though.
Mm-hmm.
We can make things happen and change, and we can call in energy or move energy away with words, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I imagine you guys are familiar with this as well. So my spirit friends, and then also a lot of my clients, their spirit friends, they love wordplay. They think that puns are so hilarious. And so the other day I was receiving a session from one of my soul empowering hypnosis students, and the universe, my spirit friends, they were saying something to the effect of, and they were giving me an example related to food. And they kept using the word sandwich, like as the food that they were using for the illustration. And I was like, why do they keep talking about sandwiches? Because I don't even eat sandwiches.
Were you channeling Joey?
Right? Yeah. And like, I'm not anti-sandwich. It's just not a thing that I do. Right. And so then toward the end of the session, they were like, Courtney is wondering why we keep using sandwich, even though she doesn't eat sandwich. And I was actually receiving a session from a student who's in Hawaii, and they were saying, we're using that word because we think it's funny because you two are sandwiches. They were like, you both want to live in Hawaii and you're both good witches. You are sandwiches. And they thought they were so funny. Like you could just feel like the knee slapping by the spirit friends where they're like, like a joke. And so it's stuff like that where they think they're hilarious. And I have to agree. I definitely like their sense of humor.
That's so weird, funny. Isn't it? How they do that?
Yeah.
Very cool.
They're very funny.
It's so cool. Have you ever heard of Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar?
Yes. Yeah.
I think that alien is hilarious.
They're so funny, right?
Yeah. He's very funny.
Do they also do wordplay?
Sometimes he does. Yeah. Sometimes he does. Yeah. But also like he'll make fun of scenarios of humans and how we react to things sometimes, or how we exaggerate things. And it's really funny actually what he says. Like I actually end up laughing.
Yeah. So, we are very dramatic. I think that if people would have a more elevated level of watching the humans and just being like, whoa, like that's a lot of drama. Okay, that's unnecessary over there. Like we are very funny.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
We take everything too seriously. Like I've been told that by my soul before. Like stop taking everything so seriously. I'm like, yeah, but it's like really hard. I'm really tired.
Yeah. One of my favorite memes to come out of the last 2 years is the meme went around in probably mid 2020, and it was a couple of aliens, and they were, sitting by the TV and popping some popcorn, and they're like, oh gosh, season 2020 of Earth is crazy this year.
I saw that. I remember that. Oh,
like,
that's so funny.
Was crazy.
Yeah. there was other memes like people on Earth saying, "I'll pay you, please take me." Like take me with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
it's true. Our realm or like our reality, right? It's so different from theirs. They probably went through not similar things, but they probably went through eras where like stuff was happening for them because they've gone through a progressive process where they are more enlightened now, right? Well, not all of them, but majority of them.
When you're talking about them, are you talking about aliens or spirits?
Yeah, like aliens.
Okay,
yeah. And so I just think like they're just probably watching us going, yeah, we know what you feel like sometimes, right? That's what I think at least.
I imagine probably every species has had a really interesting evolution. It's kind of like, the process of being a being, period, where if you look at the way a puppy learns, right? Like they definitely get themselves into trouble, like little kids, adolescents, like we all have our like weird phases. And I imagine species, it's the same thing where like we're probably just in that like dumb adolescent, like make some real bad decisions, like that phase of the journey. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
And they don't want to give us the good technology because you're not going to give the puppy some good technology.
Right.
Who knows what the puppy's going to do with it?
Chew on it first and then poop on it. They're both happening.
We're so off track. Like there's a whole topic we're gonna have.
This is the thing. When the three of us come together, we go all over the place.
I know.
I love it.
Fun is the theme. Fun will be had.
Yeah. So originally I contacted you because I said, I have this great idea. Like we all know that we consider every human being to be unique in itself. Like everyone has their own personality, their own little quirks and things that like maybe they get tempered about. Everyone's different. But when I first stepped into like learning to read the Akashic records and stepped into like the more spiritual world, the first assumption I made was that every soul is basically an imprint. Like they're all the same, right? Like, I don't know why I assumed that, but to me it was like, and another thing is like learning all the years passing with like reading other people and also kind of getting into the material, the Akashic stuff, but also like spiritual material. I realized that souls are maybe even more unique than every human being. It's insane. Every soul that I've read I could never pair two together and say, this person I read 10 years ago with this person I read yesterday, boom, they're exactly the same. Their souls are very similar. Like I have yet to find two souls that even seem a little bit similar with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that.
I think they are very unique. Yeah. I would love to dive into that.
I would love to hear some of your stories about like types of souls you've met, like cool things maybe you've like experienced and heard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I do have to preface everything with that. You know how we were talking earlier about souls being really, really funny and spirit guides and spirit friends being really, really funny. There is a good chance that there are other personality types of souls that I haven't really engaged with that much because there's going to be a certain client personality that is drawn to working with me. And I used to think that all souls were really, really funny because it's so consistently been my experience. And then I was at a hypnosis training and there was this really, really nice girl and she waited until the very last day to have her session with me. And so she had been having sessions with all of these people, these other practitioners throughout the entirety of the training. And so then I was going to be her practitioner on the last day. And so her spirit friends come in and she's kind of quiet for a second. And then she goes, oh, they're being really funny today. Like it was this unusual thing. And I was just like, wait, are they not funny all the time? So I think because, they know that I get their jokes and I like their sass, like, like, oh man, they are fresh. Like they are super fresh. They'll be very sassy. And they know that I get it and I enjoy it. So I think they also pay attention to the personality of the client, but then also the practitioner. Because it's interesting, even though the client is very much in charge during the session, a lot of the dialogue back and forth is between the practitioner and the soul, and the client's conscious mind is the one who's observing. So it's like the soul has come to play, but they're kind of playing with the practitioner a lot. So I have a very like, I don't want to say bias. It's not necessarily biased, but I have the Courtney version of what the engagement is like. And so they are very unique. They are very unique, but they do tend to have these similar characteristics, such as being like really witty, and like you were saying earlier, Lucia, very, you guys need to stop taking yourself so seriously. Like genuinely, it's not that big of a deal. You need to get much bigger picture about it. So there are those commonalities, but yeah, they're very, very unique as well. It's kind of like if you knew a really cool group of people, but they were all very unique, in addition to having that similarity of being super cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Especially the part you were saying about the practitioner also, like your personality is very upbeat, you're just, all I can see when I see you is like a smile and like laughing, you know? So I'm sure that has a huge like effect on the kind of clients you attract, but also the souls and how they interact with you, because that's maybe your best way of receiving information, maybe, right?
Yeah. Honestly, if a client's soul came in and was very like, everything is bad, I would just be like, what the hell are they talking about? Like that doesn't make any sense at all. Here's another thing that's very interesting in terms of souls compared to their personality. You can tell whenever the soul is speaking compared to the person, because the soul will say things with confidence. They say things with a period at the end of the statement. And if I ever hear a kind of a question mark at the end of the statement, I know that that's the client that's like starting to reborrow the vocal cords and speak through their own vocal cords. And so I'll even say like, is that, let's just say, is that Sally? Is that Sally speaking? Or is that, what soul name do we want to use?
Olivia.
Zandu, I don't know. They have pretty common names, not weird names. But is that Sally speaking or is that Zandu speaking? And then Sally would be like, "It's me," and I'm like, "I thought so. Let's ask Zandu what Zandu thinks." And then all of a sudden, like that confidence kicks back in. So yeah, it is really interesting. And then I know this is like not the question that you asked, but I think it's so cool, I'm going to say it anyway. One thing that's really surprising whenever the souls are coming in and borrowing the vocal cords, if it's a client who has an accent, I either practice primarily in Washington, D.C. or in Hawaii. And so there are a wide variety of accents that, I get to engage with every day. And so if a client has a stronger accent, whenever the soul comes in and borrows their vocal cords, there is a strong tendency for the soul to not have a very strong accent.
Why is that?
No idea. Super, super interesting. Like, why? I do not know. But
wow,
it's a common thing that I've noticed. It's not necessarily 100% of the time, but it's a very common thing.
Yeah. Super,
super unexpected. I have no idea why. The only thing that's coming to me, and I don't have any idea, I mean, it's coming in, so I have to say it. But you know how if people who have very strong accents sing the same song, you know how you can't hear an accent that well whenever you're singing?
Yeah, like British people singing, you're like, oh, they're British when they start talking. You have no
true.
idea.
Yeah.
So I have to, that's the only thing that's coming in. I don't totally know why, but that's what's coming in right now. So it might have something to do with.
So it's like it's not they're acting, but it's like
it kind of is though. That's also what I'm getting. It's like that there is this thing where they're like, oh, okay, so I'm going to go into this role and use these things called vocal cords, which you could think of as instruments, right? Yeah. And then you're going to like, let that be your instrument. And I do wonder if it has something to do with like, when you're singing, you're not talking like you would normally talk, and the soul is not communicating how they would normally communicate. They're doing the vocal cords version of it. So yeah, maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Well, so we're talking about personality. Do you find, because I guess this could be a little bit of personality, because it's what a soul might like. Do you find that souls are like really intense or really into a specific like hobby or like role or job or interest, like on the other side, that they might speak about during the sessions? Is that something you see often?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily something that we see often, but I have seen it to a degree. And like we were saying earlier, because there are these unique differences, some of them are going to be very into their work, and others are going to be very into their play, and others are going to be very into their learning. And then you might have a Renaissance soul that's like, why do I have to choose? I think I would like to do all of these things, right? And so one thing that's really interesting about LBL, Life Between Lives, hypnotherapy, is one of the common questions that you learn to ask when you are an LBL practitioner. It's fun things like, what is your favorite activity as a soul when you're in the spirit realm? What is your favorite thing to learn? And so you start to find out information like that. And you will get a wide variety of really interesting answers. I've told this story enough that I'll just go ahead and say, like, I was doing a practice session on my husband and his soul. When I asked him, or asked the soul, what is its favorite thing to do? This was a very unique answer, which is unlike any that I've heard before. His soul likes to go off on its own and buzz and just sort of be in its own energy and just enjoy. And in solitude, that's not lonely. Yeah. So in solitude, likes to just enjoy buzzing and be in its own energy, its own frequency, its own vibration. And that's like its favorite thing to do, right? And my soul would probably be like, okay, that's great. What are you accomplishing?
It's like he goes off grid.
Yeah. My soul would be like, we're just gonna go do a bunch of stuff and like learn a lot and accomplish a lot. And then his soul's like, great, you do that. That means I get more alone time. Thank you.
Yeah. I remember I had my session with you, and I remember seeing my soul in what looked like what I would refer to as the library, and like dug up in books and this like light code thing that she was really into. And I thought, that's why I'm obsessed with code, and that's why I'm obsessed with books, probably.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, the personalities really, even though there are differences, the personalities definitely have a lot of overlap. So ever since I facilitated that session, which was back in 2016, whenever I would see my husband, he loves to just go into the bedroom, lie in bed, and be on his phone. And so for years, I was very judgmental of that activity because it looks very unproductive, right? But then as soon as I heard that answer, I was like, oh, he's buzzing. Like when he's going off and doing that, he's buzzing. And so it's funny because whenever you're in hypnosis trainings, I tell you, every time the hypnosis teacher will say, do not facilitate sessions on your family members. And I get that. I get it. At the same time, like knowing that that's what his soul loves to do. Like if I see him on his phone in the bed and I'm like, he's buzzing, it feels endearing now instead of something that I judged pretty harshly before that session. So it's like, if you can keep a level head about you and, keep it very, very professional, I think it's really nice to be able to facilitate sessions on your loved ones because you get to find out about this really cool aspect of them that otherwise would stay unknown.
Why do they say that you can't or you shouldn't do that with your loved ones?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I understand it. It's examples like, I'll just say a couple of examples that are fresh in my mind because I recently heard a couple of people say this. So one of them, he absolutely adores, he's the practitioner. He absolutely adores his wife. Like they've been together for, going on 50 years. And you can tell like when he talks about her, it's just like, wow, like we all want somebody to talk about us this way. Like he really sweats her and they're like 50 years into this thing.
Wow.
I know.
Aww.
And so when he was practicing on her, she ended up going into a past life where she was married to someone who's different than his soul. And he felt jealousy during. Yeah, it's sweet. But I'm such a thug that, like, honestly, Charles, like, he went into an early childhood memory where he was an adolescent and he had a crush on a girl. And like, genuinely, I was like, why didn't you do anything about that? So like, for me, I can compartmentalize really easily where it's like, okay, we're in session mode now. Like this is a session and there's nothing personal about this. Like we're just doing an exploration together. And then the other person who gave their example. She found out about a past life with her husband. Again, she was a hypnotherapist in training. So he was like, hey, I want to find out about that past life, like practice on me. And then I can go into that past life. And she was like, no, no, no. You were very sad when I died. Like, you don't want to go into that past life. We can do this practice session, but do not go into that past life. And so, of course, he goes into that past life. And then he didn't talk to her for 4 days because like she left him. She died young, and she left him, and he lived to a very old age and would come to visit her every day in the cemetery. And so, yeah, again, so like, it's sweet. It's sweet.
I could barely get my partner to say something nice to me every day. He visited her every day at the cemetery.
Well, I tell you, maybe in a past life, he was more loving.
Wow.
You never know. But yeah. So he was upset with her for 4 days but again, for me, I'm just like, well, Charles didn't talk to me for 4 days, whatever, day 5 comes around. So it's fine.
Wow. So that's insane. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So for me, I think that it can be so valuable to practice on whomever. And if your loved one wants to do that and they can stay level-headed about it and you can stay level-headed about it, then it can be very beneficial. There's just one more thing that I want to say in favor of that. So the same session where we found out about Charles and his soul and the buzzing, the other thing that came up is that he went into 4 areas of the spirit realm that he has zero interest in this work. So if you have a client that goes into these areas of the spirit realm and they've already read the books, it's amazing. But it's not as validating as somebody who has zero interest, zero exposure to it going into those areas. And then also, I'm a little bit of a naughty student. There are a lot of confessions that are happening in this interview. I'm a little bit of a naughty student. I know.
Exclusive.
I know, right? And I'm a really slow reader. So even though I tried to read the required reading of these books, the LBL books,
oh my God, I ate them up.
Yeah, I'm such a slow reader that I didn't finish them in time for the training. Like, I tried, the best effort happened, but I didn't make it. And so then the practice sessions happened like right after the class, right? And so I still hadn't finished the books. And so because telepathy is real, right? And like information can be transferred from one person to another, it can be very easily said, oh, well, Courtney, like, he hadn't read the books, but you had read the books. And so that's how he got the information. No, I had not read the books. Or I'd read some, but I hadn't gotten into those sections of what he was exploring. And so
what was he saying? Like, give us the goods, man.
Right. Okay. So I know it was 4 sections, but I can only remember 2 of them right now. One of them was the library.
Right? Tell me all about it now.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So, no, actually, I remember 3. So one was the library. And so he described it in a very it's this big space and there are all of these books and there's information about, the universe and lives in these books. So he was describing it in that way. The other thing that came in was he described the council in the same way, where he was like, they're very, they're like tall light beings and they have this wavy light structure. And he described them as being like kelp. So you know how if you've got kelp in the ocean, and so it's vertical, but it's also wavy in its movement. And a lot of times people will describe the council, if they're not quite in that, human-esque form, that they'll be more like light beams. And so then the other thing was that he went kind of into like a little bit of a hell purgatory type realm. And I was like, is that in the books? So like you go into the index and you're like, did they mention purgatory or hell? And so, so that was in there and I'm blanking on the.
But was he like seeing it? He was visiting it, experiencing it? Like.
Yeah, he was experiencing it. Apparently it was a little bit uncomfortable.
Oh.
I mean, I don't think that's scary. I think that we all go through the experiences that are beneficial to us. And so if something where, especially if you feel like you need to be, if you need to repent for something, like that can just be.
Yeah.
Like,
I had my first Akashic Records reading, and I was told by the reader, who's really good, by the way, like you know if it's coming out of her mouth, like it's legit. And so she was explaining how me and at the time, the person I was dating at the time, we were both, before incarnating in this lifetime, we were both stuck in what she called limbo, I think it was called. Because our souls had done some pretty awful things. And we were she called it cleansing. We were cleansing to prepare to be able to come back. And I was supposed to come into this life and do good work to replace the stuff that I took away in that lifetime. I'm bringing things to value to people's lives. Right. And she said, you guys stayed there till the last day. She was explaining like our relationship and how our souls were very connected in almost every lifetime. And she was explaining how we stayed there till the last minute till we were incarnated. And I thought that's interesting because we were born on the same day. She didn't know that, but in different years. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And then I looked into it. I said, timelines don't exist. Linear doesn't exist. We probably just popped into the same day, but the years just different times, like just dropped. I thought it's so interesting how that stuff functioned. Like the whole scenario, like souls will just calculate, let's cleanse here for a while. And let's just like pop back in and they can be like, decide we'll do it separate. We'll do it together. It's so cool. Like this whole world that exists back there that we are not conscious of every day. Right.
Yeah. Oh, he went into the next life viewing station. That's number 4. That was, thank you. That was perfect for like getting me where I needed to remember. Yeah. So that planning, right? Before you go in and what you decide you're going to do. And another thing that's so great, and we have to talk about some myth busting. Another thing that's so great is that you do have these options. And usually the way that it's always told to us in these books is that they're all human options, right? And he had the option to either be himself or a raccoon or a tree. And they said that the lessons, the experiences would be fairly similar, but he opted for the human life because it's, in terms of like Earth time, the middle way. Like a raccoon's life would be a little too short. A tree's life would be a little too long. And so the human version of a similar experience is the preferred way for him to go.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you could have had him as a pet.
Raccoons are very cute. They are very cute. I know they like
you take pictures of raccoons like all the time, don't you? I've seen them.
Yeah. Charles, he also likes raccoons. They're so funny. And we both really, really like animals a lot, which is really nice. And so that's one of the myths that I really would like to address, which is when we read these books, they always talk about like humans have to be, doing their thing over here and animals do. And it's like, excuse me, humans are animals. Why do we act like humans are not animals? Like they are technically animals. So it's amusing that we try to act like we're something different. And so like this idea that humans can't, like there can't be interspecies incarnation. Like I have a parallel life right now. You guys know where I'm going with this, the orangutan, right?
I was thinking about the monkey. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like our souls can do anything. If you want to be a rock, you can be a rock. If you want to be a star, you can be a star. If you want to be a human, you want to be an angel, you can do all of the things, right? And so, so the idea that his soul could have been a tree or could have been a raccoon or could have been and that's the cool thing too. Same lessons, same experiences, just Earth time. He was like, middle path. We'll go with middle path on this one for the amount of time. Yeah. So yeah. And then gosh, I think there was something else that I wanted to circle back to. It's eluding me now. Maybe if I bring up something that seems random later, it's because I'm like, I remember that thing that I want to circle back to. But yeah, just going back to the whole personality thing, like that's a good example of maybe not every soul wants to have the opportunity to go into an animal, right? Maybe not every soul wants to have the opportunity to go into a tree, but some do. And so maybe that's why the books that
your soul picked orangutan, but right now, Courtney, if you could pick an animal, what animal would you pick?
Ferret.
I love ferrets.
Yeah.
They're so cute.
You look a little like a ferret.
It's like
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, this is what a ferret does. And I've had 4, so I speak with some expertise. This is what they do. They chill in a hammock for like
They do.
16 hours.
In
They
the sun.
sleep. Yes. They sleep their little hearts out. And you know why they sleep so much? Because when they wake up, all they do is party. They just play, and they're so raucous. Like they get so animated and have so much fun that they will just literally bounce into a wall. Like they're having such a good time and they're just hopping around that they'll just like hit and ricochet off the wall and be like, yeah, and just keep going. It's amazing how much fun they have. And so for me, it feels like this little being that's so cute.
They're so cute.
They're so cute. And they get to basically live the life of a kitten mixed with a puppy. It's like this combination of kitten puppy energy.
True.
And they act like a kitten and a puppy for almost the entire lifespan. It's only in the last
How
couple
long do
of
they
years.
live?
That's the sad part. I would say a shorter life would be around 7 years. A really long one would be like 10. So
Wow. It's like a dog then.
Yeah. Because ours have been like on average about 8 years. And so it's an incredible, really fun life. But yeah, it's too short. So, but then that's the thing too. You're not even having to commit to that much time. And so you just get to have a blast for a few years and then do something different.
They are really cute. We took care of your friend's Lou. Remember that? Your friend's ferret?
Yeah. My friend Tiffany when we were in New York, she had a ferret. Yeah, but I think it was the red ferret would come over and like sometimes like bite you, be like, ah.
Yeah, I remember it bit me.
Yes. Okay. I should say that some of them are stinkers. Like we had, because I was older and wiser and more in tune with animals for the second round of ferrets. I had 2 in college, and you're still dumb. Like your brain is still developing when you're in college. So I feel really bad for those ferrets because I didn't understand how smart they were. It was the second round of ferrets where I started to understand their intelligence. And so his name was Pandy, short for panda, and the other one was Squeaks, because he was the talker. And so Pandy, I would always refer to as my scholar, and Squeaks was the frat boy. And so even though they're both ferrets, like Pandy would just like, he would pay attention and he would work on things. And he had patience with me where he was like, if I just look at her long enough, she'll know I want treats. And then if I didn't notice him, because he's so short, right? Like, I didn't notice him half the time. He would walk up to me and just gently scratch my shin just to get my attention to see him. And then he would do this thing that I would call show me tummy. And if he showed me tummy, then he would get treats. So he would be showing me tummy. I wouldn't notice. Then he would come up, gently scratch. I would look, and then he would just flop right over. And then he would pretend to poop also. So like to get out of the cage, to get out of the cage, I would say like, okay, you need to go to the bathroom. And so he would fake, like back up to the corner and give like a 1 second, like pretending to go to the bathroom. And then he would excitedly run to the cage door. And then he learned the phrase, that was a fake. And so I go, that was a fake. And then he would shuffle on back to the corner again. And he could see his little sides squeezing. I was like, okay, that was the real one. And then I would let him out. So I had no clue that they were that smart, but he was really patient with me. Yeah. And that's when I figured it out. But Squeaks was the frat boy, and he would like climb on things. And they're only a handful of inches long and tall. He would be up 6 or 7 feet on top of something. And I'm like, how are you going to manage that? But he would fall no problem, land no problem. He was great. But he was a little bit of a biter. And he would do this thing where he would like lick you. And then he would give you like this tiny little, like just the edge of his teeth a little bit. And if you didn't stop him, he'd give you like a little chomp. I'm like, Squeaks, how far are you going to take this?
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? Like, Squeaks, are you just waiting for me to fall asleep one day? Like what?
You're gonna
I don't
eat
think
me?
he would do that. Yeah, I don't think he would do that, but I don't know for sure that he wouldn't do it. But Pandy, on the other hand, would never. So yeah. So just again, different personality types.
I've never seen anybody have pet ferrets except for in the US. I've never seen it in South America or Europe. I don't know where are they originally from?
I think the UK. So they probably do have some pet ferrets there. I think that's where they're domesticated, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been domesticated for 2,000 years. That's the other thing. They won't let them live in Hawaii because they're afraid that they might get out, like the mongoose population did. And it's no, if a domesticated ferret gets out, all that he's going to do is become someone's lunch. That's all that ferret is going to do.
Actually, I looked up, it says the domestic ferret that you find in pet stores are of European origin and have been domesticated for hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We're getting to a subject that I haven't like thought about since I was taking care of my friends back when I was like 13 or something. Like
it was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about it a lot because I know that I can't get one because I have my eye on the prize of moving back to Hawaii. And since I know that they're not allowed in Hawaii, I'm just like, okay, no more ferrets for me. Because whenever Hawaii's like, okay, Courtney, come home, I want to be able to just go and not have to worry about a tiny little weasel that I don't want to leave behind.
I feel
they're like a prairie dog, right? Like
they're more like a weasel. They're more like a weasel.
It's just like, it's like a dog though. Everything you're saying, right?
Yeah, I would say puppy kitten combo. Similarly too, because they really do like to play with you, but they also have that slight aloofness of a cat where they're just like, okay, I have used you for what I want and I will now go do my own thing.
Right.
But again, I'm sure each ferret has a different personality, but that's what I have experienced with the 4 that I've known where they want to hang out with you to a degree.
Yeah.
It does sound like cats too. Like cats, I always thought like if I came as an animal, I would pick either a bird because I always wanted to fly or a cat because, if I'm not going to fly, I might as well sleep. Because I love to sleep.
What about a sloth? Like a sloth literally just sleeps all day. Doesn't sleep all day, but they're
cat
so
gets
slow
a nice bed.
and
You get to be a jerk whenever you want, and like no one says anything because you're a cat. Like cats are allowed to be jerks.
Yeah. I'm convinced the cats are fluffy aliens. I feel so certain of it.
Your cat is so cute.
There's a whole like cat alien race. I've gotten it in more than one reading. Like the cat people.
It's something like Lyran, something like that. It's like
that's a lion. That's a lion. That's the lion. But then there's ones that are like they look like our cats.
Yeah.
But they stand on like 2 legs, and they're super intelligent. And supposedly they created smaller versions of themselves to help humanity. So they placed them on Earth. That's the story. Supposedly they place them on Earth to assist humanity. So it's like they're children in a way.
I believe it. Yeah, well, with football, everybody who's listening, the cat is a Manx cat. So she's got a really rounded rump. She's round. She's round. And she has a little nubby tail. So she's shaped like a football. So and I joke because like since she has lived here, we rescued her from a parking lot. But since she has moved here, she was the shape of football FOOTBALL and has since maybe morphed more into FUTBALL. Rounder. There's a bilingual joke for you.
I love it.
She was black and white. I think I remember from the picture.
Yeah, she's black and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's so cute.
Yeah, but she is definitely here to help. And one thing that's very interesting is because I facilitate the sessions either on Zoom or my office is in my house. So I have a townhouse and she usually hangs out on the 2nd or 3rd floor and the sessions happen on the 1st floor. And she is a hypnosis snob. Like she will only come down for certain sessions. And if she ever does come down, it's always during the part where the soul is borrowing the vocal cords. Like she will come. Yeah, she'll come to have a conversation with some souls and she won't come down for any other reason.
Has she ever like jumped on like the person and cuddled with them during like a moment or something?
No, the closest that she's ever come to that was the one time where the soul wasn't borrowing the vocal cords. It's like the one exception to the rule. And it was a past life. Her family in the past life had just abandoned her and she was grieving, like really feeling alone. And the football came down and faced her and just started like serenading her. Just was like singing to her the whole time. And I was like, do you want me to do anything about this? And she's like, no, it's actually very soothing. It's fine. And I was like, okay. And then she started to feel better. And then football left.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he did his work and he's like, I got my paycheck today. I'll see you later.
Right? Yeah. Paid in tuna. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, they transmute energy. So
yeah.
I watched her have an argument with the soul one time. I watched her. Yeah. And I didn't know that, I mean, obviously I did not know that that's what was happening, but the soul took the client into another planet, and then football came down, and the client told me this after the session was over, because I was just watching them talk back and forth, but I don't know exactly what they're referring to. Right. And so after the session was over, the client said to me, he was like, do you know that your cat was basically scolding my soul? And I was like, what? And then she came down and was like, you've taken him to a place that's too dangerous. Like, you need to get him out of there. And then the soul was like, we can handle it. And she was like, no, like, this is a bridge too far. Like, you're asking too much. Like, he might get stuck there. And I'm just listening. I'm like, what? Like, this is stuff I didn't even know was possible. And she's like, no, like, don't do it. Like, pull him out now. And so they're having this back and forth about, like, can they handle it or not? And she's like, too far, like, too dangerous. Stop it. And so she won. They were like, fine. And then, like, took him to another place. And I remember, like, there was this intense back and forth between them. And then suddenly, like, the soul agreed to something. I didn't know what. And then she just left and walked upstairs. Like, she just, like, it was over.
She dropped the mic and she walked out.
Yeah, she did, basically. And what's interesting also is this is a really talkative cat. Like, normally on an average day, like, I can talk to her and ask her questions and she'll always respond back. And she didn't talk for 3 days after that session. Like, it was, like, it took it out of her to be like, to have that battle. And I'll just tell one more football story. So there was this I know. I'm like, we're on a roll. Let's talk about this cat. So another session, when the soul was borrowing the vocal cords and speaking directly through them, I asked the soul, what is your name? What do you like to go by in the spirit realm? And then the soul said, like, we can't really pronounce it because the vocal cords, or like her vocal cords, don't have the capacity to make this sound. And so a few minutes later, football comes down and she's having this engagement with the soul. And then football makes this noise that starts off kind of like what a yawn noise would start off like, but then goes into this noise I have never heard her make before or since. And then the client starts crying. And then the soul said, that's how you pronounce it.
No way.
She did it for her. Yeah. Yeah. And then went upstairs.
And the cool thing is that's in the recording. So the girl can or the guy can listen back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. The lady writes to me every now and then. She's like, hey, how is football doing?
They have a connection,
Yeah.
They really do. Yeah. That was one of the people too that I don't think we've ever talked about this. Have I told you that there are kind of interesting markings that people will have that not every time, but are a strong indicator that person is from the angel realm?
No.
What's the marking?
I don't think so.
So I noticed the AN part of it. I actually had one of my soul empowering hypnosis students. She noticed the EL part of it, but they have a tendency to have AN or EL in their name, which is funny because like that's the first and second half of angel. Like nobody's ever really noticed anything about the G, but yeah. So like if you meet an Anne or an Angela or a Susan and then I realized like that was pretty obvious because you've got that Anne energy in there. Then I realized I was like, why don't I have that? I'm like,
Susan?
Danielle. Yeah, Susan, because the AN in Susan.
Oh.
Yeah. And so I have it because Danielle, I was like, that's weird. I don't have it. I was like, wait, I do have it. Danielle, because the AN and Danielle. Yeah. And then, like I said, my student, she figured out the EL part. I'm like, oh, Danielle.
Wait, you have Danielle? Who's Danielle?
Middle name.
Oh, that's your middle name. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. So, and the way that I figured it out, because I always assumed it had to be like an Anne or an Angel. I didn't, Angel or Angela. I didn't realize that it could be something like kind of stuck in the middle of the name. Like Danielle is not in the front or the back. It's like in the middle-ish. I
don't have it, and I always feel very connected to them. Man.
Well, you might have a different marking. So, okay. Let me talk about
the other markings.
Okay. What do you want to hear first? The story about the teenager or the story about the markings? Markings, and
something that makes me feel good.
Okay. So sometimes it can be something like you mark yourself with a tattoo. right? So I have 2 tattoos, and one of them is of an angel, and I wasn't even into angels. Why did I get this tattoo?
What age were you when you got it?
23.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You
It's
don't recall
way
why
before.
you felt called to do that?
Because when I was a teenager, well, maybe you haven't heard of this. There is this catalog.
Was that your tramp stamp?
No, it was. And it pisses me off that became popular. I got that tattoo there when people were getting tattoos on their ankles. Nobody was getting a tattoo on the small of their back when I did that, because it was so long ago. And I just thought, I was like, I just want this secret. Like, nobody will know I have this. And then remember the movie Wedding Crashers came out? And then and he was talking about a tramp stamp. And I was like, what the fuck did he just call that? Yeah. I had no clue, because again, everybody was getting tattoos of like roses and dolphins and butterflies on their ankle. Nobody was getting anything on the small of their back. So I thought I was just like this clever person. I was like, nobody will ever see it. It's my secret. And that was my first tattoo, is tramp stamp number 1. and then above it, because I gotta excel. If I'm gonna have a tramp stamp, I'll have 2, not 1.
A double.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm double stamped. And so I put the angel above that. But when I was in college, I remember there was this catalog. It's called the Sundance catalog, and it has things from like maybe the more like western, southwestern part of the United States. And there was this thing called a pocket cross. I'm not into religion. I'm not really into Christianity. Like, I get other people being into it. That's fine. But I'm not into it. But there was this pocket cross, and it had this outline of an angel on it. And for whatever reason, I wanted to get it. And then the outline of the angel is what the tattoo is also. It was just like this inexplicable thing that I felt drawn to. And then all these years later, the way that I even figured out that I was connected to the angels, and this is another marker, is I had severe like shoulder and neck and back pain. And so if I see anybody write that on their client intake form, and I'm like, ooh, okay. So
what do you think that is?
It's stuck wing energy. We don't know that we have them, and they want to come out, and they really want to come out, but like, we don't know that we have them. So we don't let them come out and like release that energy and like allow, that energy to be expressed. And so you end up getting like this really stuck, like it can be pretty painful energy back there. And it doesn't have to be of the angels, but usually it is. You could have like fairy wings, or, you know what I mean? But there's a tendency for it to be angel wings. I would say 9 times out of 10. And so if somebody puts that on their client intake form, and especially if they have an AN in their name, and they'll also have like angel numbers in their phone number, we get marked. Yeah. We get marked because they think it's funny. They think it's funny that when we finally realize what we are, they're like, we were dropping clues the whole time. And they're very amused by it. But so the teenager, there was this little girl, she was 16 when she passed, and her mom was having a session because she wanted to connect with her. And I don't have this every time. Like some sessions, I am so connected to what's happening. Like, it's like there, like, it's just so present. Other sessions are really, really quiet for me. But this one was just like popping, like this girl's energy. It was just like so vibrant and yellow, like just sunshine right in your face. It was so great. And so partway through the session, the little girl, she was like, pretend that you have to go to the bathroom. I was like, okay. And so she was like, I want you to look up my middle name. I was like, okay. And so I knew her first and last name, so I could look up the obituary. And then I was like, I wonder what her middle name is going to be. And so that's when I realized that she actually had 2 Anns in her name. I don't want to say. No,
it's okay.
No, don't say.
But like pretend. So for example, my middle name, Danielle, would be an example of having an Ann in the name, and her first name also had an Ann. That's when I realized, like, oh, okay, so she is definitely of the angels, and I hadn't put it together. And what's also cool about that story is that her mom, sometimes you want something so bad that if it comes into the session, you don't know if it's real or if you're making it up because you want it so bad. And so the little girl coming up to the bathroom with me was really validating for the mom, because she was like, at the end of the session, when everything was done, she was like, did she go to the bathroom with you? I was like, yes, she's the one who sent me to the bathroom. And she was like, I felt her so strongly during the session. But then when you left, I felt her leave. And then when you came back, I felt her come back. And she was like, that's how I know she was really here, because I felt the difference. I was like, oh yeah, she sent me up there. And so I told her about like what happened, and the name was like, yeah, it was her idea for me to go. So it was really nice and validating for the mom to know that it really was real, because she got to feel that energy shift. So yeah,
significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's very, very, very intelligent. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's got a game plan.
That's so cool. And that's really, that was really nice for the mom to be able to confirm that with you.
Yeah.
So you were talking at one point about like, some are like really on to what they're doing on the other side, or what they're studying, what they're doing. Like, what are some cool things that can you think of anything that like we might not with our human brains imagine that souls might be doing or interested in, for example?
Okay. All right. Most of what has come in would be easily comprehended by our minds, because it's comprehensible. There we go. So they have a tendency to give us that because it is comprehensible. So I would say the newer thing that has come in recently that would not be very obvious at first. This is not exactly answering your question. But one thing that they do a lot, especially in the beginning of sessions, people will see these amorphous colors around them in the beginning of sessions. Very, very, very common thing to have happen. And I've been trying to talk to these colors for years. I try every time because I'm an optimist. And I'm like, let's see if it'll talk. And they never talk. And so finally, it dawned on me just in the last couple of months, it dawned on me that what they are doing. And so this is going into the area of something that they do that on the surface is incomprehensible to a mind, but makes sense once you understand it. What they're doing is they're on purpose not talking, because they want us to learn that there are other forms of communication. Like, we have this tendency to be so reliant on either the written word or the spoken word. And then that really dulls all of these other senses, where think about how brilliant animals are, right? They can just like, it's an imperceptible thing to the human eye that like two dogs are having like a full on engagement, and like you have no clue that it's even happening, right? Because those senses are not dulled for them. And so what they were saying is that with these amorphous colors, they will send energy. They send energy every time. They never talk. And so they were saying, like, we are trying to teach you guys that there are forms of communication that are very powerful and just as valuable as the spoken communication. And you need to start practicing communicating in that way. So that is something that's newer, that I would say is comprehensible, but it took me years to finally figure out what was going on. So
is it like with the Michael Newton books and the LBL, he talks about what like the colors that are around the soul, and that kind of, he was kind of categorizing and trying to figure out like, oh, it means that they're expansive or progress at this point. Are those the colors that you're saying that you see, or is it another scenario?
I think it's related to that. You know how earlier I was saying that we should be doing some myth busting during today's talk? Yeah. The hierarchy of colors I would put in the category of, I will never ever say that what came into those sessions is incorrect. I don't think it was incorrect. I think it was correct for what people were ready to understand at the time. So going back to, is it comprehensible or not? Or I keep saying the wrong word. Comprehensible or not? Oh gosh.
Make up your own words. I mean, come on.
I know, right? Yeah. It's
just
like
use a color. Just use a color.
Yeah. I'm being very comprehensive in my mispronunciation of comprehensible. Anyway, so I don't think that anything that was written was incorrect. I think it was just what people were ready for at the time, and we're evolving very rapidly. We're opening up and expanding very rapidly, and so we're ready for more now. People tend to like structure. They tend to like certainty. They tend to like something that is really reliable. But we are advancing and progressing so much that a lot of us are like, we just want to know the truth. It doesn't even have to make sense. It doesn't have to have rhyme or reason. It doesn't even have to be consistent. We just want to know, like, what is the truth of this being on this day, right? Because everything is always shifting and changing, because we're always shifting and changing. And so I think that all of those very structured things that have a bit of rigidity to them, that's what people were ready for. We're ready for flow now. And so people, beings, souls will show up in the color that makes sense for what they're meant to do. So let's pretend that you're meant to come in, and I'm just making stuff up because this is what people associate with these colors. Let's pretend that they're supposed to come in with a lot of like authority and power. Maybe they come in as purple. Let's say that they're meant to come in with like a lot of joy and happiness. And so maybe they come in as yellow. Let's say that they're supposed to come in with like intensity and fire. And so maybe they come in as red, right? And so that soul, just like if you were to go to the gym, you would put on your workout clothes. And if you were to go to the office, you would put on your business clothes. And so you were putting on what helps to represent what you're trying to do in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the colors are a lot like that. And so the way that I figured this out, where it's like, wait a second, we are not necessarily a consistent color, is when I was doing those practice sessions for LBL. Of course, I was practicing on people who I know really well, because they were very easy guinea pigs, where I'm like, please just help me. Like, just give me a few hours of your time, and then we can. And so like I facilitated a session on my husband and my best friend. And then also on the person who 2 years earlier had said, if you ever get trained in LBL, I will have a session with you. And so I was like, I've got to offer him a session, because that's how I even learned about all this. And so I ended up being in all 3 of their soul groups, right? So that out of the gate is very like, that doesn't happen in the books, but I have a good explanation for it. And in my best friend's, I was what he called a pure white. And then in my husband's, I was what he called a loving red. And then in the friend who
it's a perception of the soul, maybe.
I think it's also what I'm doing on that team, right? So if I'm hanging out with my cat, like my role is to make sure that like she's getting cuddled and treats.
Like a mother.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But if I'm hanging out with you guys, like I might offer you some water, but I'm not going to be petting your, unless you really needed it. If you really
I like foot rubs. You can give me a foot rub if you want.
Right. Yeah, I'd be like, you'll get a hug from me, but I'm probably not going to be like petting you. So we take on these different roles, right? So
that's a good example. Yeah.
And so, and even though like, you know, I am the Courtney personality, I'm going to have a different personality with my cat versus you guys versus a stranger in the grocery store. Like it's going to be a different personality, even though they're all authentic and genuine. It's a different role for that scenario. And then with the friend who's like more like an acquaintance, and that one I was purple, and we were all purple. And then in my husband's, it was a variety of colors, and in my best friend's, it was a variety of colors. And then the acquaintance, his name is Kevin, we were all purple. And even though I know him the least in this life of the 3 people, that one actually felt the most like, yeah, that's actually my original family.
Cool.
Yeah. And so it feels like, because again, my soul is very like, let's get shit done. Like, let's just do a bunch of things. And so it feels like my soul has actually partnered up in very specific ways to be like, okay, I'm Charles' group's partner in this way. And I'm Bob, the best friend, Bob's group's partner in this way. And then I'm Kevin's original like teammate in this way. And I've had other clients who've also ended up seeing their soul groups and they're all different colors. And they're like, wait, in the books, we're all supposed to be fairly close to the same color. And so we started to explore like, why is this happening? And it's just that we end up in temporary groups where we're like, love you, original soul family, but I have a mission that I need to go on. And so I'm going to partner up with this temporary group because we have something that we're trying to work on together.
That makes sense.
It makes sense.
It's like when you change a job and you now work with different people, and maybe there's somebody on the team that does accounting and there's someone else that's like project manager or, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're on the same mission. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah. Some fun myth busting where one thing that I really like to do is I really want to keep an open mind. like, I want to respect the wisdom that has come before us and learn from the wisdom that has come before us, but then also understand we're always learning more, and being able to like learn so much from these clients. It's so cool. There's so much to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have that with for us, it's different with Lorinda because the majority of my experiences come from like the readings I do, but it's like, if we're talking about what we originally were recording this podcast for, was about the difference of like how souls are unique, right? And they're not all the same. I've seen so many soul contracts and souls decide to do it differently all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you think that a contract has to be like, we imagine a contract here on earth and you go, it's gotta have all the rules laid out, and it's gotta be signed here, and it's gotta be dented this way, and it has to be on an A4 or whatever, right? But when I see the contracts, it's like, some souls will be like, I'm going to do this like a grocery list. And some souls are like, I'm just going to let things flow. I'm going to give myself quite a few options. And it's like every soul does things. And some people will come with like one little line and literally there's like nothing. And some people will come with a bunch of stuff and the soul's like, I'm going to try to bang out as much as I can. Maybe that's yours. I'm going to try to bang out as much as I can, right? So it's like even souls are so different to the point where they even strategically take different ways of like routes of like the lifetime they're about to have.
Yep. I'm so happy that you're mentioning this. I think that the team gave me wisdom just a handful of days ago to be able to play in this playground in the soul contract conversation. Because for a long time I was like, oh, you have your soul contract, and like some souls are really good about fulfilling it. Like you said, you know, it's a checklist where it's like, yes, I have done this. Yes, I have done this. Ooh, I still have to do this. Better get on that. And then other souls are like, yeah, I changed my mind. I'm not going to do it. And then everyone's like, what? We had an agreement. So, and then of course the flexibility where sometimes, you know, if it's too much of a hassle and you're really struggling, then it's just like, can we just go ahead and agree to, you know, break this? But what has come in just in the last, I would say 2 or 3 weeks is this idea where it was actually because soul contracts is kind of a really common thing for a QHHT practitioner to ask about. And so the last time I had like a really proper QHHT session was back in 2016. And then one of my SEH students, she's getting her QHHT certification. She was like, can I do a session on you? And I'm like, heck yeah, I haven't had a QHHT in years. Let's do it. And so of course she ended up asking about the soul contracts. And I assumed that it would be approached very similarly to the way that my team approached it in 2016, right? Which is very like we were saying, like we've made some agreements, here's the deal. And my soul team was like, we're past that. I was like, what does that even mean? And they were like, and not past that, like, not in a snobby way. It's more just like, we've already done that version of things. And we're actually like, we've moved on and we're doing this other version of things. And they were like, we're in the go with the flow version. We don't care about contracts anymore. Like, we're just meeting people where they are and like just going with the flow of how it is. And I was like, interesting. Okay. I didn't even know that was an option. Especially because I try to like good girl everything where I'm like, but there was an agreement. And so, it was yeah. And I was like, okay, apparently we're going with the flow now. That's cool. I'll have to get used to that. That's fine. And then just like in the last few days, they brought up another version of I'll call it evolution. Cause as far as my team, it feels like an evolution of like, okay, this is play by the rules version. Okay. You've done that. Okay. Now do the go with the flow version. Okay. All right. You've done that. And now like this other version is you show up because you want to. You show up because you're having fun. You know what I mean? Like, let's say that there is a basketball court and people get together because they want to, you know, when you play on like those small teams, I can't remember what it's called, but like these people come together and they play basketball, but like there's no official team. It's just that you just show up to the court.
Oh, you mean like the three or four people? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, like it's 3-on-3 and like and there's no structure necessarily. Nobody has to be there, right? And everybody just wants to be there. And so they were saying like this is the next phase where it's very you show up because you want to. Like you're just doing the things that you like. And I was like, ooh, yeah, more of that one. I like that one.
Yeah, please.
So, because like the SEH students, they've been talking about that, where it's like we're this group and it feels like we're on this mission together. And because there's this common mission and enthusiasm and passion for it, like there would be an easy assumption that there is some contract that we have together. And then my team was like, sure, if you want to think about it that way, but it's really just that all of you like it. And so you're showing up on this mission because you want to be there and you like it. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I like this one.
Well, it's you know what comes to my mind while you were saying that? It's like, what's the saying? So above, so below, so above, so above, so below.
I know.
So above,
Yeah.
so below, yeah.
So it's almost like we're also on earth learning to be like, let's just figure it out while it's happening, or let's just go with the flow. And I think COVID happened and the country talked a lot about like, we had to learn to go. We had a lot of social obligations talked about at one point, and it was like, it was consuming our life to the point where we weren't living our own lives. So it's like, go if you wanted to go, like do if you really wanted to go and spend that time with your friend because she's having a baby shower or whatever, like go. But if you have like 20 in a row, all these different friends, because everyone's having a baby at the same time, like where is your life being lived, right? So to me, it's like, you're saying that's happening over here. I'm thinking that's also happening on earth over here. Like we're learning that down here as well. So
yeah,
that's another, like you were saying, mythbusters. Like another thing that I had as like a belief system was that they got it all figured out. They're like, when I first walked into like this whole spiritual world, I was like, they really know what they're doing up there. Like, no, actually, they're still figuring it out as well.
Yeah, that's been one of the fun surprises of getting so familiar with my soul. My soul, so you can think of a soul as an individual, right? And so my soul has a more masculine energy and he goes by Ansel. And kind of like Ansel and Hansel mixed, it's Ansel. And so at first it felt like this very like, okay, I'm Courtney and this is Ansel and we're one. And then I realized pretty soon into communicating with him, but he's actually part of a soul collective, like he's part of a team. And so whenever they come in and borrow my vocal cords, like originally Ansel would come in and speak like in the singular, you know, I this, I that. And so my team, because he's really part of a team, they come in together and they say like, we this, we that. And what's interesting is sometimes I'll ask them a question and then you can feel them like pause and then go out
have a meeting
and then find the answer. And it feels like almost like this concentric circles of wisdom where they're like, oh, that's a good question. We actually do not know the answer to that. And then they have to like go find the answer. Yeah. From the wiser beings on the outer ring or the next outer ring of the concentric circle. And it's like, they go out and they're like, hey, she has a question. We're not really sure what to say here. Could you give us some wisdom? And then we'll bring it back to her. And then they get it. And then they come back and they're like, okay, we have the answer now. And it's interesting for me to be receiving it because it feels like they're with me and then you can feel them leave to go get the answer. And there's a pause. Like there's a pause where there's like no action that's happening. You're just kind of waiting for a few seconds. And then they come back and then they tell you. And there's like all of this confidence about it because they just found out from other wise ones the answer. And it's so interesting to feel it. And I'm like, yeah, like there is this, and I'm sure that if I was from a soul team that was in that outer ring, that they too have an outer ring of wise beings. So like the ones like, yeah, we're all still, or we are all still figuring it out.
Of course. Yeah.
I totally feel that. Yes.
Yep. Which is fun. It keeps it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like everything that you do is very dynamic, very, always on your toes.
It's so much more fun. Like I can't imagine living a life and being like, I know everything is certain. And then guess what? The next day you find out something new and it's like, you know what? None of that was actually certain. You just found out something new. I can't even imagine like how rocky a road it would be to think that you actually know everything. And then every single day you end up being wrong because you didn't know everything.
Yeah. You're still trying to figure it out. I read this one book. I can't remember it now, but this book, it was like a channel. They were channeling these like aliens. So it's like different chapters. And in my mind, I also thought that aliens must know the originator soul and like or source creator. They must know all those stories, like how it all began and how everything was created. And like they don't know either.
Right? Yeah.
Even like the most progressed souls, like go to the Pleiadians, everyone talks about, were like these like 12th dimensional, I've heard that apparently that they don't know either. They're still trying to figure it out as well. Like,
yeah. Well, so this is interesting, tying back to something we were saying earlier about the colors, and that they're not necessarily going to speak with you with words. It's more about feeling. So let's say you do tap into source energy. You're probably not going to tap into all that is ever going to be known, because I don't know that our mind could handle all that.
We can't handle it. Definitely not.
Yeah. Like if you tap into source energy, you're going to tap into a feeling, right?
Yeah.
Like you're going to feel love. Like that's what you're going to feel. But like what you would write in your journal that day about what you experienced would be very few words. So that's interesting too, where like you can tap into source, but like as far as the thinking wisdom of it, you might not walk away with a lot of information, but you're going to walk away feeling real good.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that was another thing that I thought that originally I thought when we died, like we go into a soul form eventually and like, boom, we know everything about everything and everything. And like, no, actually the souls have to like gradually get to that and learn. So they don't know either. So like you were saying, when I began this path, I had all these ideas and belief systems. And then after a while, I'm like, the more I get into them, like, the more I'm like, I don't know shit. And my soul doesn't know shit either.
So do you remember earlier where I was like, I had something else to say and it's going to come back at some point? It just happened. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Let's see, it was you mentioning dying. And I'm like, that's right. I have a story about dying. Okay. So you know how we were talking about the hell realm and purgatory, and sometimes you need something different than what we think of and then go to the light and everyone is there and they hug you and you're greeted back. And yes, that happens a lot, but every now and then your soul needs something different. And so, and normally that's what my soul experiences, but there was this one lifetime where I was in Hawaii. And it was a lot like this lifetime where like what I came to do was to be helpful. Like I'm not here for, living a normal life. I'm just here to be helpful. Like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And so even though it was a long time ago and it's in Hawaii, apparently there was still drama. You could still get caught up in drama, right? And so I was pretty young, I would say very early 20s. And I had been warned by the team a few times where they were like, you're getting caught up in the human drama. That is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be here to help. Like cut it out or we're going to yank you.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. You're right. Like, that's not what I'm here for. And I got caught up in it again and they yanked me. And to the average person, it would look like a death. Like it would look like a rogue wave came and got me and swept me out into the ocean and I died. Like that's what it would look like to normal people.
Sounds scary.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying that like if somebody gets taken out by a rogue wave, that this is what's happening to them, but this is the way that I got taken out in that life. And so really what they did is they were like, you are not doing what you said you were going to come to do. There's no point in you even being here because you're not helping actually. And so they pulled me kind of like I think about sports, a pitcher, like in baseball, a pitcher, and that if they're messing it up, like they get yanked and another pitcher gets put in because it's like you're not fulfilling what you are supposed to be doing to help the team. We're pulling you. And so I got yanked. And what they did is they put me in time out under the ocean. Yeah. So even though it's technically surrounded by water, it was almost like this capsule that was dry. And I was just like in this dry pocket in the ocean. And I don't know for how long, but it was a long time in timeout to basically think about what I had done. So no, is that purgatory? No, but there is a timeout that can also be had on the other side or whatever you want to call that. Is that even the other side? I'm not totally sure.
That kind of sounds like the limbo that girl had told me about. Like, it's like where you're just going to cleanse yourself, be neutral and be like, think about what you did, do it better next time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. Like the reason I even found out about all of that is because I keep trying to get my way back to Hawaii. Like this lifetime as Courtney feels like a big, so many goosebumps, feels like a big part of this life is me being like, I'm going to earn my way back. Oh my God. Yeah. I could cry. I'm like, I'm going to earn my way back. I'm going to earn my way back. And so in this life as Courtney, like, yes, I have gotten caught up in the human drama from time to time, but for the most part, I'm pretty good about like, I don't watch the news. And then if I find myself like every now and then I'm like, I don't watch the news, but then I'll like watch YouTube, like clips of the news. And I'm like, that's different. And I'm like, it is not different. And then like, or on Instagram, like I'll be following someone. They're like, did you hear about this? I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh shit. I'm finding another outlet. So like, I just unfollowed, like, I feel like I'm like slowly peeling away all of the vices. And so I just unfollowed like so many people on Instagram. And I'm like, Courtney, you can do it. You can do it. Just like be pure, like just stick with the work, stick with the mission, do what you're supposed to do. And I can feel it too. Like I can feel like Hawaii is getting closer and closer and closer.
Oh, that's nice. That's so nice that you figured that out, that you like saw that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it is kind of fun to be like, this is the lifetime where I earn my way back. And as part of earning my way back, I help like a lot of people, understand more about hypnosis and like teaching all of these SEH students. And there's this great ripple effect where like they're helping so many clients now. And so it's like, this is like, to earn your way back into something seems like it would be really, really hard. I'm like, SEH is really fun. So I'm like, this is a pretty cool way to earn your way back. I'm like, I like this. This is good.
No, it's
amazing. You get to do that. Is it like, that's your job, basically. You get to do something that you find fascinating, you enjoy. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel really lucky. It's like, if you have to work your way back to something, this is a very enjoyable version.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And speaking of Instagram, like we had connected with you because you popped up on my Instagram.
Yep.
And I was just like, she's interesting. I don't know what it is about her. And I just like started following you. And then I was like, Lorena, I don't know, there's this girl I found on Instagram. I think we should get on the podcast and talk about hypnosis because she seems to do hypnosis. It's just kind of like, it was this weird thing where it all made sense. And you just came in.
It was meant to be. Talk about like a fun contract where it's like, yeah, let's have fun together. This is a sandbox that I want to play in. Yeah. So I want to make sure, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I don't want to ever sound like I'm not necessarily vilifying, let's say, television or Instagram, or like there's so many great things that happen because of technology. So us finding each other,
amazing, yeah.
Or like so many cute animal videos. Like I
watch all the dog videos.
Oh my God, my daughter watches that all day long. She thinks it's hilarious that cats are scared of cucumbers.
You know what? Football, again, fluffy alien. Like I've tried so many cat things where they aren't supposed to like oranges or citrus or cucumbers or water. And she's just like, okay, what I call myself the short one and Charles the tall one because he's almost a foot taller than me. I'm sure my cat's like, what's the short one up to now? Like, why is she bringing a cucumber? I'm like, you're supposed to do something funny.
Are you doing it the right way? They're supposed to be not looking at it when you put it down. And then they turn around and see it.
She does not give a shit about any of the usual things. I think it's because she's a Manx. And so they evolved naturally on the Isle of Man to like have that little stubby tail and that like rounded rump. And they like water and they're really talkative and they act more like dogs. And so I think just because like she's from this like very distinct breed that acts a bit more like a dog, that she doesn't have any of those usual fun quirks. But yeah. So like I was saying with Instagram or any medium, like I love being able to watch animal videos. And so it's like they're really good things. So I don't want to sound like I'm vilifying, like, oh, I'm still on Instagram. I like to see what my students are up to also because they create really cool things. And so it's fun to be able to celebrate what they're up to. So yeah, I do like it. I just want to use it in a way that brings more joy. Yeah, brings more joy. Yeah.
We have to think more about things like that today than ever before.
Mm-hmm. I went through this whole era, like I had to absorb a lot of information. Like I function in a way, it reminds me of like my soul when she was in the library with the books. Like I need to figure out how things are played out in the world so I can figure out how the world works so I can figure out how to nail it for myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing over here. Okay.
Yes.
I already know exactly what you're doing. And I'm going to go over here and do my own thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that the three of us, and I hope if anybody ever feels any nerves about what's going on around us, I hope that they can really hear this, because I think the three of us do a good job with this. We see the nonsense of the world and we like to understand it, right? Exactly what you were just saying. Like, I want to understand the nonsense of the world, but it doesn't scare us.
No,
like more like we just want to understand what's happening, but we never really get wrapped up in the emotions of it. It's just information for us to be able to understand more things rather than like super scary. Yeah, and so I hope, if anybody's ever been super scared about basically anything, but especially the last couple of years, it's just like, no, like it's information. It's information, and just process it that way. So,
yeah. I mean, I've seen things that I think like, it's like things are going to get exaggerated. We already know that the media exaggerates things. And I've been fighting against the media since like a little bit before Trump thing. Like I already knew that I had to fight against media back. I didn't know why. And then COVID came into play and they exploded it. And now I'm like, that's why I was already angry at media. I already saw it and felt what they were about to do. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it took me a while to figure that out. I'm like, why am I so upset with media? Like all the time now. But then that happened. I was like, oh, I got it now. I was already feeling what they were up to, or they were about to do. But now I get to a point where like they explode things to a maximum, and I read it and I start laughing, and I'll share it to my partner Sandra. I'll be like, Sandra, look, they're saying this now.
So like, funny. Yeah, they are not subtle at all. Like they'll have somebody come on to the news and then they'll say something completely absurd. And exactly, you just laugh and you're like, wow, they're not even trying to be subtle.
Yeah, just like you have that WTF face, like, what? This is what they're saying now? Seriously?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been very, very interesting. I'm really grateful for the last couple of years. And I love that like so many of us see all of the silver linings about what has happened. Like it's been weird. It's been real weird. But it's been a great couple of years.
It's been very expanding, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
We all got to face a lot of fears and then decide what we were going to do once we understood. Like I have a lifetime theme/fear of being trapped in situations, right? So I had a rocky childhood. So I was basically trapped in a situation for 18 years, and I was a forceps baby. So even like exiting the birth canal, trapped. Right. Somebody has to be like, oh shit, get the forceps, like pull this kid out. And so like out of the gate, we're in this like trapped scenario, then trapped for 18 years for me. And then the whole like last 2 years happened. And I was like, oh,
that's so weird. That's so funny you say that. Cause I went to have like some drinks with a friend the other day. And she's the only spiritual person I know around here. And we found each other through our interest in aliens. We both got into the CE5 app, like Stephen Greer. And I like went to the area, find someone in my area, and I found only 2 people. And I wrote them. And I don't know if it's a girl or a guy. Like I didn't know the names. I just wrote them. And that one name is the only one that responded. It's my only friend in the area. So I call her my alien friend because we met through that interest. And we get together, we just talk about all the spiritual stuff. And like, there's no one in the area really that we know that's like that. So it's us too. And the other day we were talking about how we both had the fear of, it was similar. You didn't use the word trapped, but she used a word similar to that. And I said, that's funny because my biggest fear is being falsely imprisoned.
You know what? I found a lot of people have that fear.
It's probably because there's a lot of energy of people falsely imprisoned. And
totally.
Yeah. And that is kind of what just happened for the last 2 years. We didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. We didn't do anything wrong. I can't get on a plane. Well, okay, you guys know me. I refuse to comply, at all. So when I say I can't get on a plane, it's because I won't do the things that you have to do right now to get on a plane. So that's a false imprisonment where it's like, wait a second. We didn't do anything.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Because what I was saying to my friend in my vision is you're stuck in a little cell and the food you get is what they give you. And you're told what time you can go like out of the room and what time you have to wake up. And
God.
Yeah. Like that's like I always thought, I hope I never get caught in anything where I'm like, you know what I thought the other, I thought about it so much, guys, so much. I was like, I can never, you start talking about like giving your hair to charity. What happens if I ever cut my hair and I say, oh, this is a good cause, I'm giving it for children of cancer or something. And then they grow up one day or, and then they like commit a crime and then my hair drops on the crime scene. And then I'm the one convicted of murder.
I think it probably has to be attached to the follicle. I'm just guessing.
I don't know, but I've thought about these things.
I've never thought about that in my life.
I have. Or what about if you go to a public bathroom and like, oh, this is really bad. Like a tampon, like you're changing your tampon and somehow your liquid gets mixed up with someone. There's like a murder there. And then like, oh, we found Lucia's blood here. She's involved.
I have a feeling that you'll have so many character witnesses that you'll be okay.
My Lord. Oh my.
I must have been falsely imprisoned in another lifetime because I'm definitely always thinking about how they can negatively catch me and I didn't really do it. Like,
yeah, you probably have. I wouldn't doubt that.
You'll be okay. We'll vouch for you.
For sure.
Thank you.
Well, and also, so here's a fun thing that I like to play with sometimes, which is so absurd bad things can happen, like a false imprisonment. Like that's an absurd bad thing that can happen. Absurd good things can happen also, right?
Amen.
So, yes.
Yeah. So just call in like absurd amounts of protection. Right. Yeah. And then just be like, no matter what happens, I just want to be protected. And then you're.
I do ask for protection, but now I'm going to ask for absurd amounts. Thank you.
Me too. Absurd amounts of abundance. Thank you.
Word. I want it to be absurd because you know that we would be generous with it.
Of course.
It's like have absurd amounts so that we can not spend money on penis-shaped rockets that go into outer space and instead do like nice things that help people. But yeah, no, just last night we were at a restaurant and I have no idea how the physics of this could even work out. But we came back to the parking lot from the restaurant and there were these multiple cars that had been hit. And like, we weren't even sure that we would be able to pull out because like everything was surrounded by like wrecked cars and then police cars that were trying to help with the wrecked cars. And like in the center of all of it was my car. Unscratched.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. To the left of me, hit car. To the right of me, hit car. And they're all parked next to each other.
What happened?
Like in the back of me, I don't know. I think somebody was just driving like really, really fast and just managed to like hit a car. And then those cars ricocheted onto other cars. And like I had the convertible, you know me, I'm going to drive a fun car. So I had the convertible top down and like we found 3 tiny pieces of glass inside of the car that had like flown up and then landed into the open top of the convertible. So that's like how big of a
sounds like a tornado came in and moved all these cars or something.
Right. But yeah, and so in the center of it is my car with like, yes, 3 tiny little pieces of glass.
The absurd amount of protection.
Absurd amount of protection. Totally fine. Because like the cops were like, is this your car? I'm like, yeah. And they were like, look around, make sure that it's okay. And I looked and I was like, yeah, it's okay. And they were like, you're really lucky. And I'm like, yeah, absurd amount of protection.
That is so weird.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So I just feel like we can.
I mean, not for everyone else around you, but for you, that was cool.
What's that?
It wasn't cool for everyone else that was involved, but it was cool for you.
Right. But I honestly do trust, and I'm sure you guys have this perspective also. I do trust that like every single person in that scenario got exactly like the perfect thing that they were meant to experience. Just kind of like the last 2 years, like even though it was uncomfortable, as we were figuring out what the F is the silver lining here? Like, what is happening? But like every single one of us ended up getting like the exact thing that we needed. Like for me, even though I used to travel the world and I loved it and, all of this good stuff, I also really wanted my business to thrive. And I've been grounded for 2 years and I've had one thing to be able to pay attention to, and it's my business.
Yep.
And so like the last 2 years have given me like so much quiet, extended time to be able to really work on things. And then, how we were talking about soul contracts earlier and birthdays and all of that, like the two people that have been really, really great teammates for me, especially since like this last fall. One of them, I am convinced we were conceived on the same day because she's born on like my due date. I was born a couple weeks early, so she was born on my due date. And then the other one is a few years younger than me, but she has my exact birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I hired.
That kind of backs up my theory.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So there's this fun, like, in addition to, and like I said, they like to show off. They like to have fun with us. And so it's like, okay, we're going to have you guys be born on the same day. It's going to be really fun. Okay. You two. And I feel like the one who was born, I think we were both conceived on the same day. She's my marketing director. So she's like an essential teammate for my business, right? Like she knows, I know hypnosis, she knows marketing. And I'm like, let's do this together. And I feel like I can just see our souls, like on the day we decide to be conceived, just like high-fiving each other and then just like dropping into the abyss. And I'll be like, okay, see you in 42 years. And then, yeah. So it's so much fun to think about like all of this like fun planning that we're up to in the spirit realm, and then we come to Earth, and it's like, okay, let's go to that wild planet.
It's so weird. Souls love. It's true. They love showing it, but we're not aware of it. Mm-hmm. Like we can't. Yeah, we're too caught up in the drama.
Yeah.
Right? To like be aware of those little tidbits that let's throw these little breadcrumbs over there. They're like, oh, haha, it's funny. Maybe they'll figure it out. And then we just walk by it and we're thinking about tomorrow's problem.
Yeah.
Like, man, she missed the joke.
Again. Yeah. But yeah, they'll tell the joke again. We will get it one day. It's kind of like being drawn to angels and then not understanding it for like, I don't know, I would say at least 15 years, not understanding why there was that original draw. So yeah, I love it here. I think it's so interesting when people say they don't like it here. And I'm like, it's such a cool planet. Like it's so pretty.
Really? Oh, I always say that I'm not coming back. I'm like, oh, I'm done.
But you have all
probably
these
will.
Yeah, you probably will. Because we want to keep playing.
Yeah. Well, I actually read a whole book about how there's a lot of souls that have come here to kind of assist. And this was something I was already feeling, to kind of assist with shifts that are going on. And there's souls that kind of had stopped doing the cycle thing here on Earth. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I think I'm one of those, because I feel like I was kind of like, all right, let's go again. But I feel like I'm a bit done with it. But it might be Lucia. It might just be Lucia that's done with it.
And also, I mean, maybe you'll come back, but maybe you're like, okay, extended break again, please.
There are souls that come on like vacation. Yeah. Some souls will come here and be like, I'm going and I'm going to have like a sabbatical lifetime. Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah. The people with the charmed life, where it's kind of like, it's the human version of a ferret lifetime, where they're like, I just woke up and everything worked out. And I'm like, that's good.
Yeah. They're on their sabbatical because they had a rough one before, probably. Right. Yeah. I totally believe that. I totally believe that. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder about, cause you know how so many healers have gone through some challenging things. Usually it's a challenging childhood, because that's like, the easiest training ground to get really strong, think outside of the box, really understand what it's like on the other side, like what a true challenge feels like. I am always curious about somebody like Dr. Joe Dispenza. He actually had a really good childhood. And I remember seeing him talk about it. And I was like, whoa, like there's somebody who's had a really big impact in the healing community who actually had a good childhood. I was like, I didn't even know that was possible. But then I found out he got hit by a car and then was in like, I couldn't move. And I think they thought he was going to be paralyzed for a long time.
He healed himself with his mind.
And so that was his boot camp to have like something really challenging happen. But he did it in a very condensed period of time. And so I always wonder about people who have those vacation lifetimes. I'm like, do you have an impact on the world?
It could be an instance too, right? Like it doesn't have to be the whole childhood. Like that makes kind of makes me think about Foster and him being electrocuted 3 times. That was like a huge
hit by lightning, not electrocuted, even worse. Hit by lightning.
No, electrocuted, hit by lightning. Sorry.
He was hit by lightning.
Courtney's face. You can tell that she does.
Did I say electrocuted by lightning? I don't even know what I was saying. I was just my head was like moving ahead of my thoughts.
Either way, that's a ton of times of getting like zapped.
Yeah, it's a lot.
If I remember correctly, he stopped talking after the last one.
I believe so.
For how long?
A while, I think it was.
That's interesting.
While.
You know how we were talking about they want us to be able to strengthen other forms of communication?
Yes.
Oh, that's a good time.
Picked up on some new stuff during that quiet time.
Oh.
I'm sure he did.
Well, yes, that led him into his like spiritual shamanic thing. So
Yeah.
probably, yeah.
100% for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't.
Yeah,
think
another
that.
good example of like things can look really scary and pretty darn bad, and then end up being like some of the best stuff that's ever happened to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you know, I always think about our move back to Uruguay. That was really hard. It was like at a really difficult age for us.
Yeah.
And that changed. It was like night and day. It changed everything. It was so hard. And yeah.
We've been running away from Uruguay ever since.
Yeah. But just emotionally.
It was beautiful. It was not a good time, even though it's beautiful.
I love Uruguay, but yeah, I think there's just a lot of, it's so funny. I was actually reading a newsletter from the family constellation practitioner that I always go to and I've gone to for years in Uruguay. And she was talking about how we need to thank, like when we move to a new country, how you need to thank that country for receiving you and for everything that it's giving you, like the energy of the country. And I was thinking the same thing about how I probably, now that I go to Uruguay, I'm going to go visit Uruguay again. I'm going to do that like practice of thanking Uruguay for everything it's provided for me, for the experiences, and just like doing it while I'm there, like grounding, because I think that's sounds really powerful. And sometimes we can get caught up in the emotions of things of when we're, you know, for example, our move and how hard that was. And then that could trigger us to always think that that place or that thing is difficult or hard. And then that perpetuates obviously negative energy or low vibrational energy. So I'm thinking if I could change that, would that change my experience with the country, with what I'm living there? Of course, I would think so.
Yeah.
Sure,
In my opinion, like at least personally, I probably do associate a little bit with like the struggles we went through. But when I think about it today, why I don't want to live there, the reasons are actually the current situation, which it's not that bad, but it's the wages, like the cost of life is more expensive than Europe, for example, but the wages are lower than
but you can create your own experience around that. You work online, so you're not dependent on the, you know, a job there, for example. Like how can you create your own experience with it? You know?
Like the taxes are like insane in Uruguay. It's almost the same as Holland, yet Holland is really secure. Like you can leave on the bike and go anywhere and you never have any problems with like, you're going to get mugged or like, whereas Uruguay, you have to watch your back. Cause I've almost gotten mugged quite a few times actually.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like, it depends on what energy you bring into it, because everybody's experience, you know, some people are like, imagine like, just think about when somebody visits a country, they're like, it was the worst. I hated it. And then someone's like, it was amazing. I loved it. Like, why did they have such different experiences?
Yeah.
I think there's a
and
lot
next
of
time you're
factors
there, absurd amounts of protection.
Yes. Thank you.
I was really protected. Like the last time I'd had an incident there, it was two guys on a motorcycle. Now until this day, I'm trying to like shake it. Like when I hear motorcycle, I clench my teeth. Like I already like freeze up.
So scary.
Because I was walking, I was alone. It was right during the day, lunchtime. And I had my cross bag. I had a cross bag. And I was walking and I was about to cross a road and I stopped because I heard the motorcycle coming and I was going to let the motorcycle pass, of course. And that's when the guy in the back of the motorcycle yanks my purse. And the guy in the motorcycle that's driving, he keeps going. And somehow I managed to grab it and pull back my bag.
Gosh.
And then I shoved it in my jacket because it was broken. They'd broken the thing. I shoved it in my jacket and I start walking fast and I hear the motorcycle turning around and coming back for me. And I can't find anybody in the street. And I'm walking really fast and I'm like half a block down. I can hear the motorcycle getting closer. And then I see a woman about to go into her house. Like all these houses are fenced, have like these fences outside, right? So I see a woman coming close and I said, hi. And I pretended like I knew her. I went into her house with her. And I'm like, and then I say to her, sorry, they're about to rob me. Like someone's trying to get me. Please let me inside your house. And I just pretended like I was with them and I grabbed her and I pretended I was hugging her like I was like her friend or something.
She was probably like, what is going on?
No, she closed the gate right behind us because she heard me. I said it really fast, but she heard me and the motorcycle just kept going. And she said, "Oh my God, you are so lucky that you found me. My sister the other day, they tried mugging her on the same street, also a motorcycle. She did. I think she didn't get to see them. And she said they beat her when they couldn't get her purse. They beat her, and her face was just deformed. And so they were coming back for it. They would do the same thing they did to her sister. And I was like, oh my God,
that's so scary.
Lucky.
So lucky. Yeah. You were protected.
Yeah. It's interesting too, the concept of those houses being protected on an individual level, right? So you've got these fences, these walls.
That's like a thing in Uruguay.
Yeah, but then at the same time, like it keeps everybody on the street so vulnerable because nobody can see the person who needs help on the street. So
yeah.
True.
Well, I'm glad that she was out there, and that's nice too because she couldn't protect her sister, but she got the opportunity to protect you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. It's and I think it was a message like also to me find out what it could have been, what could have happened.
Yes.
Like anybody else could have been showed up for me to help, but the one person who had a sibling that had actually had the same exact problem a week ago, and I was like, oh my God, it was 12 o'clock bright day. I was like, what's going on?
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah, they don't care. But okay, we go everywhere with like.
That's what I was just gonna say. I was like, we don't have a theme. Like we just literally just flow like water down a stream.
It's just fun. The theme is fun.
The idea is always just to catch up with you and to share ideas and bounce stuff.
Courtney's team would say we just showed up.
Yeah, we showed up.
Yeah. And that's perfect too, because like you were saying, Lorena, we get to bounce ideas off of each other and then also elevate each other's game. You know how, like, I don't know why I keep talking about sports so much today, but you know how if you're playing sports against a team that is just as good or better than your team, your team gets better, which makes their team better. And we're elevating each other's game.
That's true.
Where it's just like, okay, I learned a lot. I thought about things I hadn't thought about before. So it's really fun to hang out and then like expand and elevate my game just based on like spending a couple hours with you. It's cool.
True,
and now we all have absurd amounts of protection.
Yes. Let's send everybody ourselves. Let's send all of the listeners absurd amounts of protection.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like
an abundance.
I love it.
And free time. I think I always, freedom. When I pray, like I do this like little pray where I say like thanks to stuff. Like I try to do the grateful thing. And then I also like ask, then after I ask, so I thank first and then after I ask. And I always try to ask for like, give me free time. Like I want free time to be able to enjoy life. Like, why do I want money if I don't have free time?
Yes.
Why do I want this over here if I can't just enjoy that?
Yep. Yeah, I always ask for the happy, healthy version of things. So it's like, I want a happy, healthy abundance, but I really need to start to incorporate the free time thing in there because like of all of the fears that I have cleared, and I'm getting better with this one, I'm a little bit time phobic. Like, you know how everybody has their own version?
I am too.
Yeah, of lack. It's like, oh, they fear a lack of this or a lack of that. And for me, it's like time.
You repeat, I don't have enough time. How am I going to find the time?
Yep.
It's true though.
Yep. So,
mindset.
Yep.
Belief.
Thank you, Lucia. I now incorporate it. Okay, protection.
I want absurd amount of free time.
Yes. And I think all of us can agree. We don't want to pick and choose. We want all of those things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm not budging. I want all of them.
Yep.
We're gonna try to bring you on a couple times a year at least.
Well, I'm going to have all this free time, so let me know.
True. So will we, I guess. So why not? So yeah, definitely. We'll stay in touch as we always do, even if we're not messaging every day, but we always kind of follow each other, right?
We're always overlapping. Like it's funny because my soul empowering hypnosis students, they'll say like, oh, the sisters. And like everybody knows exactly what that means. And you know how Julie is in your group and like she's also in the spiritual hypnosis membership. And Brian the other day, he was like, yeah, remember the sisters?
Oh, I love
Brian.
He's so sweet.
Yeah. And I saw Julie's eyes light up when I was like, Lorena and Lucia. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And so like, like there's this overlap of like our families. Like it's so nice.
It's beautiful. Oh my gosh. I love that. Yeah.
Also, like what those news, like the WTF news that sometimes I'll see, I'll be like, oh, Courtney will appreciate this one. And then I'm the one that's giving her the drama in his life.
Yeah, don't give her drama. She doesn't want it.
It's fine because at this stage, I'm like, oh, that's funny.
Exactly. You're saying that. That's true. That's true.
So it's okay.
Oh, awesome.
So make sure to give her to give all the links, because you got the book, the page, the classes.
We're going to get all of that. So I'll email you after this and we'll get all your links. We'll put those in the show notes. So anybody that wants to find your book, your services, your website, anything new that you have going on. So I know you always have something fun and something new.
Always something new. Yeah. I'm starting an SEH school.
Oh my gosh.
No way.
Yeah. And you guys were the first interview that I ever did when I talked about that I was going to be teaching my style of hypnosis. So and here we are again, having another interview right before another big growth period, right?
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you for being like the energetic teammates. They're very we know something cool is happening. We want to hang out. It's like if a phone needs a charger and you guys are like, here, let us send you a little extra juice.
Yeah.
You're about to go do some fun things. So yeah, I really appreciate it. And then we'll do this again and I'll be able to tell you how the school's going.
Amazing.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
We're going to hold you up to that. I love it.
Thank you.
So we're going to sign off now and we'll be back next week with a new episode. Send you guys all lots of love. And lots of abundance and lots of, what was it that we said?
Absurd amounts of protection.
Free
time, love, abundance, absurd amounts of everything.
Yes.
High vibrational. Okay. Thank you.